Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is HT, and I'm here to present off-grid Bitcoin mining. Thank you very much. So, why mine off-grid? One, it brings the market to the molecule. And more importantly, it places emphasis on governing authority at a local level. Conflict resolution and avoidance is easier to navigate. It promotes individual accountability for success, abandoning government-issued benefits. So depending on the state is something that we're trying to avoid at all costs, and this is something that also requires that. It is a smaller environmental footprint. Operations are nimble and more easily deployed. And sustainability. There's so much abandoned waste and renewable energy available. Like, for example, in India, they have over 600 to 700 terawatts of biomass that could potentially be turned into energy, and it just kind of goes to waste. Here's a few other fiat reasons to mine Bitcoin off-grid. When you price pretty much anything in the world today in Bitcoin, it all trends towards zero. And last but not least, my favorite is sovereignty. To operate in the most efficient way possible despite geopolitical nonsense. No grid ties means you don't have to deal with government making you do stupid programs. So, when to mine off-grid? So if your local kilowatt price is inconsistent or rising, it could make your operations unsustainable long-term. ASICs are loud, and when you scale an operation, off-grid can be less disruptive to neighborhoods, schools, offices, and municipal buildings. Energy is available to you, but too far for a grid tie-in, so maybe a natural gas well, or you maybe have wind available, or you potentially could have maybe a large lot where you could set up a gasification unit. So the opportunities are there. You also have, with things like solar and wind, a peak production when most people don't need the electricity. So you can balance that load by implementing ASICs and setting up an off-grid operation. And then if you're tired of the rest of the world telling your ass what to do, then this could potentially be for you. So where to mine off-grid? Places that have abundant natural resources are a good start. Where you have some type of access via four-wheel drive or off-road vehicle. You can see that I've built operations in places you can only bring the ASICs or the generation with an ATV, where you can move the equipment to and from the site without too much difficulty, but keep in mind it will be remote, and where the resources again are available, but potentially cost too much to bring to the grid. And then we have the rest of the alphabet soup agencies who are trying to figure out how they might be able to stop us. Well, they can't. Well, not me at least, unless they put a bullet in my head. So who mines Bitcoin off-grid? The sovereign individuals who can handle the temperatures and the elements that go along with everything that you might imagine yourself dealing with in an off-grid type of situation. There's up in the north, closer you get to Canada, like in North Dakota, we got wolves, and down in Kentucky, there's packs of coyotes, and then in Texas, we deal with literal cartel coyotes, and then you got washed out access roads. And then pretty much anything else you can imagine happening will probably happen to you at some point. So being prepared is very important. Uh-oh, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves there. Sorry about it. Okay, so some other hats you'll have to wear when you mine Bitcoin off grid are the following. You're gonna have to be able to know what's going on with the weather constantly. You're gonna have to figure out some network engineering skills. You might have to do some metal fabrication, carpentry. HVAC is definitely gonna be on the list of hats you're gonna be wearing. If you're like me and want to run software on devices that it's not supposed to run on, like Foreman on a Raspberry Pi 4 or something, you're going to have to become kind of a computer scientist too. And then if you need to rebuild or to start your site, build the road to the site, you have to learn to operate heavy machinery, auto and trailer repairs, and then a lot of electrical work. So people who can deal with this nice list of things are well suited for mining Bitcoin off grid. You kind of have to be a little bit of a Renaissance man or really good at working with a team, because all of these things that are listed here are going to be implemented almost every single day. And safety is at the top of that list for very specific reasons that we'll get into in a little bit here. So fixing everything, operating heavy equipment, as I said before, building the roads, maintaining the ASICs, the engineering of the network, and all of the things that come with that give you the ability to claim the hard-ass look that this gentleman will provide you with versus the other one. So to mine Bitcoin off grid, you're gonna have to either buy or build out a data center. Your power source has to be considered. What's the source of energy you're gonna use is gonna determine if you have AC or DC inverters, a generator, turbine, your data connection, satellite, cellular modem, or mesh network. Some places they may be able to get a local ISP line in, but like a local access network. But some of these places, it's just not possible. So learning how to establish a satellite connection and a cellular modem or a mesh network is going to be very helpful. Learning your ASIC mining equipment, the switch gear that is involved with setting up the network, security, the firewall, VPN, and camera clearances are extremely important here to protect your privacy, not just from the prying eyes from the roadside, but from digitally as well. So next, we got firmware and tools required and PPE. So ideally, your data center will look like the one on the end there, where you have actual decent cable management, and not like that one there. The level of integrity that goes into that is extremely important when it comes to making your operation not just professional looking, but also safe. If in the event there's an electrical hazard or a fire or something, and somebody needs to escape the building in an instant, getting caught up in the wires and that being the reason why your guy didn't make it out is going to make you look pretty foolish. So my recommendation is to pay very much good attention to your cable management. So as I was saying, off-grid Bitcoin mining, we have many different power sources. We've got natural gas, hydroelectric, hydrogen, wind, solar, biomass, and geothermal. Each power source will require different components to make it viable for a mining operation. PDUs, generators, inverters, transformers. These things have to be installed in very specific ways, and if they're not, it could kill you. Not just by chance or over time, like you flip the switch and you're gonna get smoked right out of your boots. So it's very important that even if you feel like everything is solid and good to go, that you have a licensed electrical contractor just give your stuff a once over, just so that your family isn't suffering and not getting paid out an insurance claim if something does happen to you. So once you get your power source established, you have to work on your data connection. You get satellite It prevents being tied to a local ISP and gives you greater flexibility for distance, which helps to promote sovereignty. Your cellular provides good consistency with connectivity locally. Bandwidth can sometimes be issues, but you can always update your devices, upgrade your devices, and achieve better bandwidth. And then the downfall with that, though, is that you're still tied to a local ISP, the towers locally. And so if you ever have a geopolitical issue locally, you might have faced, a little bit of was just a disagreement with them. You have to find an alternative connection. But I've experienced less weather-related issues with cellular modem than I have with satellite in some instances. Mind you, I've been doing this since 2017, and the satellites that Elon Musk has, put up have greatly improved connectivity via satellite. And so within the last 36 to 48 months, I've had pretty much zero issues on satellite. So, and then this monstrosity is a mesh network. It would be my preferred way to do things because it is very robust in regards to its abilities to provide data and for you to communicate with the outside world, as it's not just a single pipeline in. They are difficult to develop, though, and require a very sophisticated level of knowledge for network engineering. So next is ASICs. And that meme has turned into reality since I've started doing this in 2017. So you want to make sure that your operations are as efficient as possible at all levels and at all costs. So what's an ASIC? It's an application-specific integrated circuit. In general, basically it just does one thing only, single function or a set of related functions. And just to note, SHA-256-based ASICs retain their value much longer than what I like to call shitcoin mining ASICs, as they tend to turn into expensive paperweights as their associated affiliated tokens trend towards zero. There are a handful of choices for ASICs. These are the main competitors in the market. If you're going to do off-grid mining, I would prefer that MicroBT be implemented in the operation, as they have proven themselves to be the most robust pieces of equipment that I've ever seen in the field. I've had an M30S running in a puddle, and it didn't ever skip a beat. And then I dropped one down a flight of 24 steps once. It was in a hurry. Plugged it back in and it still ran fine. Can't say the same for any of these other competitors. And so that brings us to the networking of our ASICs. You build a switch, support your ASICs, chain the switches together, or however you as an individual decide you want to set up your network. You could have dedicated ports with reserved IPs, or you could do DCHP protocol. It just depends on what kind of flavor you're looking for. And so you get all your network cables plugged in, switch to the modem. And so this is another place where you're going to really want to implement cable management, because trying to discern what's going where when you have a bad cable and it's negative 30 degrees out is not fun. So having an organized data center is extremely important when it comes to being off grid, because you don't want to be out there any longer than you have to sometimes. And then next is security. Firewalls provide protection against outside attacks by shielding your computer or network from malicious or unnecessary network traffic. VPNs, as I'm sure we're most aware of, are used to guard against, people snooping on you. And then we got cameras. Cameras have to be installed with clearance. I have had my own operations jeopardized even because there were clearance issues. It was my first operation, and it was a very humbling experience. And so that's something that can sometimes be overlooked, but you definitely want to put a lot of emphasis on your cameras and their clearances. And then redundancies for your security, recommend a UPC backup, a universal power supply, so that you can, in the event of a power outage, you can keep the security cameras on at least, and that way, if anything does happen, like if somebody even gets hurt on site, you still have the video of what happened to protect yourself. And then last but not least, loose lips. More times than not, sometimes you get people that just are excited about their operation, they're talking about it, and then they forget in their excitement to maybe turn off their location setting on their pictures, or they give up the actual location, and not too long later, something comes up missing. So it's just better to kind of keep it on the down low. And then this is the most important part of this entire presentation is PPE and safety. Depending on your setup, some or all of this is going to apply. Like you may not need an arc flash suit if you're only running a 250 kilowatt operation. But you're definitely going to want to have EH-rated boots, hard hats, grounding mats where you're running high voltage, safety glasses, gloves, and if you're in a natural gas setting, a 4-gas meter, or at a minimum an H2S meter. H2S, I could do an entire presentation on just that alone. It is one of the deadliest things in the oil field aside from a blowout. And so if you have a natural gas well on your property, and you ever decide you want to take the challenge of trying to operate it, invest in a couple $100 in an H2S meter, can save your life. Highly recommended. And then it was a little bit of a controversy. I was talking with somebody about it, but I feel PPE and safety should also include munitions. Because when you operate in an off-grid situation, you're out there by yourself. And if anybody comes upon your operation and they want it and they're ready to take it and you're not ready to defend it, it's not going to end well. And it's just, the world's not getting any better at this point, it feels like, unfortunately. So I recommend highly you protect yourself. So once you get all these things figured out and you've educated yourself, it's time to rack and plug them in. You connect your modem, your server, security system, and ASICs, start up your power source, open the louvers on your box, your building, make sure your remote monitoring system is working properly, make sure all your cameras are operating efficiently, and go ahead and start up your system, start mining. And then you get to go home in time for pizza if you're lucky. So why do we mine Bitcoin only? It is for a few reasons. Bitcoin has the first mover advantage with its globally decentralized and distributed nature. Searching for the next Bitcoin is pretty much useless. It's like searching for the next TCP/IP protocol. It's just, there's not going to be another one. And when you think about it, where's the integrity when it comes to the other things trying to mimic Bitcoin? When I built this presentation, there were 14,000 nodes around the world in over 156 different countries. Currently, that number's closer to 18,000. And then there was only about 10 to 12 gigawatts of energy securing the network. And currently, there is over probably 20 gigawatts. And then when you look at the computational power, when I built this presentation, the network was only around 200 exahashes. This is just a couple years ago. We're currently sitting at over 790 exahash almost. I think we just hit 800 almost. And so when you look at the integrity of the rest of these things out there trying to be Bitcoin, it's just an absolute joke. It's just an abomination. It's just like, what am I even wasting my time looking at this? And if you want your operation to stand the test of time, you build something that can stand the test of time. Build something that's proven, something that's hard, something that's not going to be manipulated by the next jagoff who just wants to get what's in your pockets. Bitcoin has no jagoff. It's just a decentralized software. That's why I love it. And then, the other thing about mining, there's these side chains that are built on SHA-256. It doesn't add anything to the network. It's just another blip in the chart. And then, you know, where's all this stuff come from? It's just a trickle down. You know, you don't want to be holding the bag from the next guy, and pretty much that's all you're getting. Shitcoin hardware versus Bitcoin hardware. You want to imagine owning a $20,000 paperweight after the token that your mining hardware is associated with dies. That's going to hurt. So I don't advise anybody to ever mine Bitcoin off-grid with anything other than SHA-256. The other thing, I mean, this is from a principles perspective, mining Kaka supports ideas that are on par with the current fiat legacy system, just a digitized version. I mean, if you're a fan of that kind of stuff and the financial slavery that it brings, then, you know, you have fun mining that and have fun staying poor while you're doing it. The most important thing about mining Bitcoin for me off-grid is the freedom and sovereignty and the preservation and protection against the terrible behemoths that are all listed right there. You know, we got the IMF, the World Economic Forum, CRF, Federal Reserve, European central banks. It's just like, this is a battle if you think about it. And so when you're building your armor and, you know, you're going into battle, you want something that's solid. You don't want to be wearing a paper shield, you know? So a lot of people think it wastes energy, but I'm of the opinion that it doesn't. I think that it utilizes it in a very efficient manner, and I wouldn't prefer anything else to be protecting my money. The nimble and flexible operations that come with off-grid mining have advantages that supersede the on-grid mining by leaps and bounds. When it comes to your kilowatt rate going up and you not being able to control that, and you have millions of dollars of equipment, that's tough to swallow. But if you have a few $1 million of equipment and it's on wheels, and they can just roll down to the next site, then it doesn't hurt as much, and you have a better opportunity to control the kilowatt hour. And the other thing, again, is nobody tells us what to do when it comes to off-grid mining. You know, the only thing that we have to really pay attention to is our footprint when it comes to what exactly we're putting on the ground out there. You want to make sure you're clean. You don't want to leave any trash out there, so you can keep doing what you're doing. But that means also sacrificing some things. Because when you mine Bitcoin off-grid, you kind of can't just get whatever you want and be fancy. You got to really go bare bones and essentials only. You're going to be sometimes on the field for 21 days or longer without any time off. It's 12 to 17 hours a day. You get 1 million square across out in the oil field easily. Or if you're running, you know, multiple other types of smaller like gasification units or something like a mobile hydro unit, you're going to be driving a lot. You're going to have maybe anywhere from 150, 200 miles a day windshield time. Closest town could be 70 minutes away. The airport, 90 minutes away. It makes for some long days. So to do it, after you build out all these things and you've done all this stuff, you're going to look at all your remote server choices. You got your Windows machines, your Linux machines, and some free and open source stuff, Raspberry Pi 4. I prefer Linux. It's a lighter and you don't run into as many issues with all the bulk garbage that comes with the Windows. And then if you're good, you can run free and open source stuff on a Raspberry Pi 4. But you end up getting a little bit limited. You can only run so many machines on some of these smaller devices. So that's why I prefer Linux. For the OS on a hardware, like a ThinkPad works well. So firmware and remote viewer software, you got Foreman, AwesomeMiner, Hive, Vnish. A lot of these things, they have white labeled, so basically it's just kind of figuring out who you want your percentage you're sharing with to go to. And then with your remote viewers, you got Google, RealVNC, TeamViewer. I like RealVNC, it works well, comes with Raspberry 4. And there's some other open source stuff out there. I tell people to go open source because it gives you the opportunity to kind of review the code and it saves you some money. It's very helpful with off-grid operations. So when you're doing and building an off-grid operation, some things you have to consider, are the tools that are going to be required. Just talked about that earlier. Every single one of these tools on this list are tools that I've had to use multiple times. So you're going to want to familiarize yourself with all of them. Are you guys still interested in mining Bitcoin off-grid? And do you guys have any questions?